Hi, my name is Josie Miller, and this is my presentation on cultural differences in marriage beliefs. So, this is just my introduction slide. Basically, I'm just going to talk about what culture is. So, culture represents the beliefs, customs, skills, practices, languages, and manners of a society. And the whole point of this presentation is to talk about cultural evolution, which is how culture changes over time and why it does. So, a good definition is by Alex Masudi from 2016. He says the theory that cultural change in humans and other species can be described as a Darwinian evolutionary process, and consequently that many of the concept, tools, and methods used by biologists to study biological evolution can be equally profitably applied to study cultural change. So that's his definition of cultural evolution. And since scientists believe that cultural evolutions follow the same ideas as proposed in Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, such as the variation, natural selection, and inheritance. So, similar to genes, so we think of genes being passed down from generation to generation, from parents to offspring. And then we think about memes in kind of the same sense, but it's non genetic information. It's not actually like reproduction between a sperm and an egg, but it's rather a belief or idea that it is shared between individuals in that culture. So, the whole point of this presentation is to talk about if we think memes are just as important as genes, or if they're more important or less important. And in my opinion, I think they're just as important because it determines how a culture will act or what they actually believe in. And then again, the Charles Darwin contribution in his Origin of Species, like I just said, between the natural selection, gene flow, genetic drift, and mutation, all of that can be applied to cultural evolution and not just biological. And then just talking about the origins of marriage. So every marriage way is different in different cultures. So, but like the general idea is the same. So if you look up the umbrella term of marriage in Google, it comes up with the legally or formally recognized union of two people as partners in a personal relationship. And that's by Oxford Languages in 2022. So marriage in different cultures has the same like general understanding, but it's interpreted differently in each different culture. So I'm going to talk about an arranged marriage, which is like parents stepping in and finding a mate for their daughter or son, which will mutually benefit both families. And then marriages that we have in the US where you find love and a companion and you get married. But the earliest marriage occurred in 2350 BC, which was about 4,350 years ago. And it occurred as a bond between a man and a woman for a woman to become a man's property. And it signified that she was his and she could only have his children, which was according to the Origins of Marriage from 2015. So marriage in the United States. So the way we do it, we're a free country that's in our Constitution. So we have a freedom of choice. We marry based on love and a companionship. There is like a financial aspect in choosing a mate, but we still, at the end of the day, have a choice. In other cultures, they don't have that same freedom. But there's also something called mate selection, and they actually do exist in free choice marriages and are theorized in biology. So a research article by Susan Sprecher et al. Suggests that men desire a mate based on physical attractiveness and someone that has reproductive potential. So any woman that'll give him offspring, be able to produce a child, is attractive and he's more likely to go after her. While women desire a mate with earning potential, such as ambition and status, where if she were to start a family with him, he would be able to provide for them. So that's from Sprecher et al. From 1994. And it is technically a biological aspect, but it can also be a cultural evolution aspect when choosing a mate for marriage in cultures where mate selection is acceptable. So in the United States, where we do get a free choice. And then in arranged marriages, like I said, it's more of the legality of the marriage. So both families benefit from the gaining of an alliance with the forming of two families. So they'll gain the wealth, the power. A lot of people still have dowries, which is the father will pay the daughter's dowry to the groom. And they do this because they believe that there is a greater opportunity for their offspring when they produce. So in arranged marriages where there's like a king and a queen, they know like if they have a son or a daughter, she'll be like the prince or the princess versus the prince and stuff like that. So they'll know that because of the bonding of these two families, they'll always be wealthy and have power if they do bring offspring into the world. And then population genetics, this is just like kind of the definitions. So natural selection is the idea of the survival of the fittest. So in a cultural evolutionary sense, this would mean like the belief that is popular or that everyone kind of follows in the culture, something like that. While genetic drift has two types, one being the bottleneck effect, which is a reduction in population size as an effect of environmental occurrences. And the founder effect is a small number of members of a larger population inhabiting a new location. So that's a biological definition. More of the cultural evolution is a reduction in population of people who believe a certain thing and it just didn't stick, kind of like that. And the founder effect is like an idea of people that believe in something and them leaving that place and going somewhere else to inhabit a new location, whether they're taking their old ideals and spreading it to people there or conforming to the people's beliefs that they are now inhabiting with. And then mutation. In biology, we think of it as a mutation occurs randomly in a DNA sequence and is considered to change one's DNA. So normally, as all of these, we think of it in genetics, but it's also in evolution. So it's just something random that happens. We don't know why it happens. So that's how it would be involved in cultural evolution. And then gene flow is just the movement of genetic information from one population to another population. And I related this to the idea of memes being transferred into a culture from another culture. So natural selection, like I said, in cultural evolution, it's an idea of popularity and success. So like how love and companionship is how marriage is successful in the US versus how arranged marriage is successful in India. And then I said that the founder effect is more likely to happen in cultural evolution for genetic drift. I related this to people in arranged marriages such as India. They call them asylum seekers, so they'll flee their country to avoid arranged marriages, and then they will inhabit new places where they will find success. So a lot of these people come to the US just because of our freedom and freedom to marry and not be stuck in an arranged marriage like that. And then mutation, so this is just like something random that has changed. So recently a lot of people have been childbearing and living with a partner before marriage, which has evolved over time. Because if you talk to someone, like if you talk to my grandma who's in her 80s, she would say that living with someone before they're married is sinful and stuff like that. But now it's more common and it's not a problem. People don't get angry about it. So it's just kind of something that's evolved over time. And then gene flow. So I related this to the Europe Enlightenment thinkers. So during the Industrial Revolution, there was something called the Enlightenment, and these people thought that marriage should be more about love and happiness than there should be to gain money and power, and that's according to the Origins of Marriage from 2015. And so they no longer wanted the money and they no longer cared if his parents agreed or disagreed with the two people who were getting married. So they just thought that since these people in Europe did it when they came and settled over in the US, they brought their ideas, which kind of stuck with us as we've followed this and been successful with this idea of marriage. And then, in conclusion, genes are the biological aspects and the genetic information, while memes are the non-genetic information spread from parents to offspring, or in memes through cultures, through individuals in the cultures spreading what they believe. And I said that natural selection was more prominent in India and genetic drift was more prominent in the US. And I said this because in India, arranged marriages have continued to remain popular and successful in that. And it's just like other love and other marriages have occurred, but they commonly stick to arranged marriages just because it is successful. And then genetic drift, I said, was more in the US because the idea of the Enlightenment thinkers bringing it over from Europe. That's how it started. And then the importance of memes, I said I thought they were just as important as genes because it's a whole cultural's belief systems, and what a culture actually represents is because of memes. And then these are all my references. So thank you for listening.